Hi, I'm Nick Briggs. I'm the executive producer of Big Finish Productions and the voice of the Daleks, and you're listening to Mark Who 42.
Welcome to Mark Who 42 here on Odyssey Radio. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. With me today are Zion Kiros.
What's up, guys?
Hey,
How's
Zion.
it
How's
going?
it going with you? Oh, wow. We have sound effects on this show. That's cool. I don't know what that was. But we also have Iggy Matthews. Iggy, welcome back to the show. We love having you here on Mark Who 42.
Oh, well, it's great to be back. It's great to be back. How you guys doing?
We've been good. We've been good. And today we talked about this a couple weeks ago, about Paul Spragg and a competition that they have at Big Finish, because of in memorial to him. And we have a guest on our show today who can talk a lot more about this. His name is Max Curtis. I have known him for a long time.
Longer than anyone probably in the Doctor Who world.
No, I've known people in Doctor Who world a little longer than you, but that's okay.
You've known, yeah.
Yeah, I've known Sylvester, and I've known Colin, and I've known Peter.
Oh, they outrank me.
I've known them since the '80s. You're a youngster compared to that, Max. Max Curtis and I, we partake in the nice faith, the chosen people, and we have Passover dinner a lot. So yeah, it's good. Max, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, this is interesting because you're an American, but you don't live in America anymore, do you?
No, so for about 7 years now, I've been living in the UK, currently living in Cambridge. In my real life, I'm a PhD student, and, by night, I'm someone who spends all this time watching, like, The Savages and Trial of a Time Lord and whatnot, so...
Savages, yeah, I'm due for a repeat of that on my reconstructions. I'm due for a repeat on that. That'll probably be in the next 2 weeks.
One of my favorite slideshows.
Oh, it's a great... Don't you love reconstructions?
There's a magic to them, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
In non-Savages news.
Okay, Max, I want to talk to you about Paul Spragg. Now, he worked at Big Finish as a production assistant from 2009 till his death in 2014. Can you tell us a little about him? Because I know you probably know a little more about him than I do.
Yeah, so I, of course, never knew him personally, but from what it seems, he was this incredibly beloved figure at Big Finish. Brought on a lot of new writers, brought on a lot of production assistants, producers, directors, etc., who, trace the work that they've done in Doctor Who through Big Finish back to this one person. And so he died, as you said, in 2014 very suddenly, which was apparently just this huge shock to that whole community. And in memorial to him, a couple of people at Big Finish, especially one of his friends, Ian Atkins, the former producer of the Short Trips range, started this competition in memorial to Paul Spragg. And that's been going on since 2016, I think, yeah.
Yeah, now, Paul, what did he do? He was script distribution, he proofread, he did cover layouts, he did the CD Extra interviews, he was vital. He even wrote, didn't he edit the Vortex magazine that Big Finish puts out?
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah. And you get a lot of information and news about Big Finish from Vortex magazine. You could just go to bigfinish.com and download the PDFs and get information. But and he did it for quite a while. And they did a special issue, I think, where they had all the people from Big Finish talk about him in it, and it was a very good issue. I don't remember the issue number.
No, but he was basically the face of the company along with Nick Briggs.
Yeah, Nick, friend of the show.
So I have a question for Mr. Curtis. Actually, I'm going to be representing as youngsters that don't really have that much experience. And I'm saying, so I want to know your street cred. Where have you been? What have you done? How did you even get in this pool here to get you right here?
In the sort of like Doctor Who fandom world.
Yeah, Doctor Who fandom. We love that.
Yeah, it's by invitation only. So I would like to know how you got into this club.
Oh yeah. Well, the invite came around when I was, basically I was about 12. My mom was actually a big fan of the show. I think similar to Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, she is. Her, of course. She still is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you were like this, Mark, as well. Like you'd watch like the old PBS airings of it in the 70s and 80s, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. The Tom.
Nostalgia late.
So especially for her, it was, the iconic pairings were like, Tom and Romana and Sarah Jane and whatnot. She used to record them all on VHS because she lived in Michigan and they would go out to air at like 2 a.m. or something. So she had like a very early VHS and she was able to record them. But then, way too many years later, she was watching the Sci-Fi Channel in America, and we picked up on Doctor Who. And I remember I walked in on Christopher Eccleston's last episode, Parting of the Ways. My first scene of Doctor Who was all of the Daleks emerging from the ship and attacking Satellite 5. And so I thought it was going to be a lot more action-packed than it ended up being. But
sound effects again.
So it was a great sort of introduction to the show, and then sort of went back, watched Rose, went through the whole first series, and then of course David Tennant pops up at the end, which I didn't know because I hadn't seen the whole of Parting of the Ways, had absolutely no idea what was going on, and yeah, I thought David Tennant was going to be terrible. Turned out to be, of course, iconic. But yeah, so since then, I've not done a whole lot that's quite impressive in Doctor Who fandom. I don't run podcasts or anything. Hang out among a group of, especially like online, there are a bunch of sort of British lefty fans. The sort of like, I don't know if you follow people like Elle Sandifer, people like that. Those sorts of group of people who read the show probably a little too much in depth, but enjoy looking at it from a very political perspective. That's probably one of the ways I got into the show, as something to be a little more, to be analyzed in depth, to be picked apart more extensively. And yeah, then I hopefully took those kinds of ideas and put them towards the story that I have coming out next month.
Yeah. Okay, Max. Interesting. Let's talk a little about the contest. Now, this contest, like you said, this is the 4th year of the contest, and you entered this contest when?
So it was in 2017, the 2nd year of the contest.
2nd year of the contest. And did you win?
No.
Oh.
Well, so I was a runner-up, and there are a couple of runners-up that were sort of sitting on their desk, and they had to decide which would win. My story, I submitted never thinking I would get close to winning, partially because the nature of the contest as a memorial contest meant that since my story was very, emotional and very depressing in some ways, that would probably send a bad message if they picked that as the winner, because then every single future entry would probably be, a tearjerker. So anyway, didn't win, but I was a runner-up.
But and may I say, your story it totally fits the memorial. It totally fits memorial. Oh yeah. My God! And people are gonna love listening to this. But okay,
so you're one of those people with the Budweiser horses and the puppy. Oh.
Yeah, the story is Joe Grant meets a puppy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's a lovely puppy.
They can't have puppies. That's just like emotional warfare.
Okay, so did anything?
A painting puppy. A painting puppy. This puppy has magical powers, can paint.
And he paints?
He paints the puppy.
What, did he paint infants too? Come on. Not fair.
Did anything come from being runner-up?
Yeah, so essentially, normally in these contests, since then, as well, the runners-up, unfortunately, just get a nice email. But that year,
how lovely.
Dear Max, sorry you didn't win. Better luck next time. Signed, your friend Nicholas Briggs. Basically that's what you were expecting, right?
Yeah, that's basically what I was expecting. And then instead I got a message that was essentially saying, we seem to have a sort of empty slot in our subscriber short trips area. So basically, if you subscribe to their normal monthly range, which is, the ones with Peter Davison and Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy, those monthly stories, if you subscribe to those and get basically every single one, you get a bonus story that they release every couple of months. So they had a couple free in the schedule, and they said, well, why not, have these runners up, which are clearly some pretty decent stories, thrown into the mix. Yeah. So that's what happened. It was despite the fact that I didn't win and I lost to the amazing story Landbound by Selim Ulig, which everyone should listen to.
Yeah, Landbound is good. Landbound was
good. And another Third Doctor story as well.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little about, and we'll get back, I know we're supposed to be talking about Paul Spragg in the contest, but let people know what the short trips what it is, because it's not a full audio recording, it's not a full cast recording, it's not even the companion chronicles where they have one of the actors telling the story and having one actor do another voice. The short trips are a little different.
Yeah, so they've been going on for, I think, 20 years now, as originally books
since the beginning. They're audio books basically.
So originally, even before Big Finish took hold of them, they were actually a series of books that are now very hard to get hold of. They're sort of short stories.
The short trips.
The original ones.
Decalogue and short trips and from Virgin and BBC books. The Wilderness Years. Yes, I have those. Yes, I forgot. Okay. But
they're hard to get hold of now, though. But now, and that tradition
I'm
was
sorry. I hope you have your copies because I still have mine.
Oh wow!
Man.
That was the most catty thing I've ever heard you say. Well, let's stop for you.
Hey, I have to be catty once in a while. I have to show my creds somewhere.
Out of print on your shelf. But Big Finish took hold of this a couple of years ago, and at first they were sort of these CD releases that were basically very, very short trips. They were literally like, some of the stories on there are like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Now the sort of current structure of it, it's about in word counts, about 5,000 words or so. And the actual monthly short trips that are now the sort of hallmark of this, they're read by a single performer, like you say. There's no double act going on. Mm-hmm. It could be, for instance, Peter Purvis reading on his own. He's the narrator. He's also the doctor. He's also the companion, whoever else. And I think it's actually an incredibly versatile range. It's become very quickly, I think, my favorite Big Finish range and one of my favorite things in the sort of Doctor Who spin-off world by far. And there have been a couple of series of this now. I think
been a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're on their 5th series of this.
And it's funny you brought up Peter Purvis because we were talking Savages a few moments ago.
I've got the Savages on the brain.
And they also happen to be on this show right now. How about that?
The Savages. We're the Savages. Zion, do you have anything you want to add to
I writing a Doctor Who story, you obviously have some bit of influence and whatnot. So I was wondering, did any stories like inspire you in some sort, to write the story that you wrote?
Yeah, so I think especially with something like A Short Trip, not just my story, but lots of the other ones throughout the range, I think they really pick up on some of the sort of like tropes and stereotypes of the era, not in a bad way, but just because it's, when you have only so many words, you really have to be snappy with it. So with my story, for instance, it deals with some really big emotional stuff, and it deals with some very complex plot stuff for A Short Trip. And so to get through that, essentially, I cribbed from The Claws of Axos and The Time Monster pretty heavily, and that's pretty obvious, I think.
Yeah.
If you read it, I actually in the process of editing it, the producer Ian Atkins, who is the former editor of the Short Trips range, he actually had me insert a reference to the axons because it would be ridiculous if Joe didn't notice the similarity in there.
Yeah.
Which I think was a good point. Although just as a sort of side note, I did use that as an excuse to also add in an adventure that she must have had with the Bandril Armada. That was probably my favorite joke in the whole thing. Adding in a Bandril adventure.
Very nice.
Yeah. And so, of course, someday someone was going to pick up on that incredible storytelling opportunity of Pertwee versus the Bandrils. You can only hope.
All right, Max. Let's talk about the rules for this competition, because I know that the competition ends June 29th, I think. Yeah, June 29th. And you've got to get this story, not a story. You don't write the story. Well, tell about the rules.
Yeah. So in terms of what you actually have to do, it's pretty much 2 pages. It's 1 page that's just a synopsis of your story. So, literally a couple of paragraphs. And then the other page is an excerpt, usually something they recommend from the beginning of the story. Even if, that incentivizes you to probably have a good opening hook.
Just something to rub it on your palate. Just a little.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because like a lot of Doctor Who stories take a little while to get going, but you need something that really captures their attention. That's not from, like the conclusion or whatever.
And there he was on this barren planet, seeking destruction. What happens next?
As all the best stories.
It has to be dramatic. I can only imagine, just trying to figure out, what excerpt do we put up here?
Oh my goodness. That reminds me of there was this one beginning. Okay, I didn't want to get off of track, but there was this one Big Finish beginning where it was Doctor and it was like this action movie. I think it was Jubilee.
Yeah, Jubilee.
The
Doctor in like a romance movie almost, or an action romance movie.
Robert Shearman, Dalek. Yep.
Yeah, you can crib from no better story than a Robert Sherman story.
Yeah.
It definitely does need to start with there he was on this barren planet, seeking his own survival in, destruction of the planet as well. And it's to be continued. What's happening? What just happened?
Well, because that's actually true, really, because they're reading through. I think they said in the last competition, the one before, they had about 1,000 entries or so, somewhere around there. And so your story does need to stick out and capture their attention one way or another.
Yeah, we're trying to get
spark curiosity and confusion simultaneously.
Yeah, hopefully more curiosity.
We're trying to get one of our co-hosts, Ed, to enter this contest because Ed's a writer. He writes comic books and stuff, and I've talked him in. I think I've talked him into entering this thing.
Oh, did you really?
I tried to when we talked about this the other week. So, and he said that he's going to look into it. So, yeah. But you have a month. So, okay, the rules. Now, you can use any Doctor from the first Doctor to the 12th Doctor up to the Christmas episode, Twice Upon a Time. You can't use the War Doctor because of copyright.
John Hurt's very important.
Well, there go my plants.
Yeah, you can't use characters from the new series, including Osgood, Cade, Paternoster Gang. You can't use them. you can't use villains or monsters from any of the series. You have to come up with your own story. And I think, and tell me if this is right, Max, because they want something original.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the stories that have already won from 2016 to now, and you look at the other runners-up stories like mine that we're turning to, subscriber short trips, these ones, it's a huge emphasis on originality and a huge emphasis also on characters and emotion.
Okay, so the question begs to be asked then, and I'll be that person. Mayhaps, have we thought that maybe, I don't know, like maybe BBC has run out of ideas and they're using this contest as like, interesting. We shall put that in the new season.
Well, actually, when you, when they contract you for this, funnily enough, they do actually have to send the outline to Cardiff. So they have to approve your story. So who knows? Maybe they'll reject it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, no. From what I understand, if you win, but the BBC doesn't want you to use what you're using, you have the opportunity to use something else.
Yeah. So if Chris Chibnall's planning on using your brilliant idea and you didn't know it, you're still fine. Right.
You can still win this thing and get an audio made. And I'm just so you write the two. I think it's 500 word pages to 2 pages.
Yeah.
And,
it's really short.
And where do you send this in to?
Yeah. So you send it in. Where's the email? competitions@bigfinish.com. And I could really encourage anyone who has any interest in Doctor Who whatsoever to just send something in, because everyone has some personal idea for an episode. Everyone has something they'd love to get made. And this is not that much work to put into to possibly get a story made.
Yeah. And what's interesting, they don't want you to send anything about yourself or about your work, your previous work. They want what you're sending in on those 2 pages to speak for themselves.
Definitely. So it doesn't matter whether you've written anything before.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes it so incredibly fair then. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that you do include your name possibly, but
I would hope you put your name on it, because if you don't put your name on it, I think they're
we have a mystery winner.
We have a mystery winner, and they will. Is there any compensation to this, or is it just totally because it's a memorial? It's just the fact that you get your story on audio.
I can't speak for the winners of the competition, but I do know that mine commissioned as a subscriber bonus, I did get paid not a huge amount, but not a terribly small amount either. So you do get a little bit of money for it. That's definitely worth your time writing 20 pages of a Doctor Who story.
Wow,
it's very, very fair.
Brilliant.
I also, have some story ideas, and maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this.
You should.
I mean, at least now, of course, and we'll talk about this because we only have a minute left in this segment, but we'll talk about the fact that, you're writing 2 500 word papers, but, you still have to deliver something that's longer, so that and there's a time limit on that, and we'll talk about things like that, because I'm not going to listen to an audio that's just an introduction to a story. I think you have to write the story eventually.
And that's the hard part.
That's the hard part, right? The entering is not the hard part. The actual story idea. And when we come back from our break, we will talk to Max Curtis, who is now a Big Finish writer, about his process of writing the story that he wrote. And we'll talk a little about the story he wrote. And Paul Spragg, we miss you, and we wish that you were still here doing your Big Finish stuff. We'll be right back on Odyssey Radio here on Mark Who 42.
Don't go away. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
I'm Jessica Martin, Mags from The Greatest Show in the Galaxy on Classic Doctor Who, and you're listening to Odyssey.
You're now listening to Mark Who 42 from the Whoniverse and beyond.
And we're back with more of Mark Who 42 here on Odyssey Radio. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. With me today are Iggy Matthews and Zion Quiros. Hey, guys.
Hello.
And our guest today is Max Curtis, who was a runner-up in the Paul Spragg Memorial Writers Opportunity Contest that is going on. And actually, even though you were runner-up, you have an audio coming out for Big Finish.
Yeah, that's right. So it's called Doctor Who Short Trips Still Life, as in still life paintings.
You know what? It's still life paintings, but you know what? I listened to this audio, and I got to tell you, there are more meanings to still life than just your still life paintings. I'm just saying. You came.
Count them.
There were at least okay. I can say I won't say them out loud, but I saw 3 right away. But I caught another one when I re-listened to it. So you definitely used still life for a reason, and it's a great pun. It's a great title. It's a great feeling. It's emotional. It's sad. It's touching. Sensational. Definitely sensational. And when is it being released on the subscribers special?
Yeah. So as I mentioned in the last segment, so Big Finish has those monthly adventures. My story gets released alongside the next monthly adventure, which is An Alien Werewolf in London by Alan Barnes. So that's if you've been following it, Sylvester McCoy teams up again with Mags the Werewolf.
We actually had Jessica Martin on the show to talk about this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we had her on the
show
a month ago. Actually, 2 months ago to talk about the whole 3 things. And you know,
that's awesome.
She's great. She's great. And this will be. I'm excited. I'm very excited for you. I'm so happy for you that someone I know originally from South Florida, where I'm based, has written for Big Finish and is going to definitely, I think, go places. So, and the story is a Third Doctor Joe Grant story, and so much more.
Yeah, well, I can talk a little about that.
Okay, let's talk a little about it. I didn't want to give anything away, but go ahead, go.
Oh yeah, well, I can give just a little bit of spoilers, just partially because it's a very very in some ways dark, but also very optimistic story.
And powerful.
Oh well, thank you. But so it's about something that unfortunately is very common, which is Joe Grant dealing with a sick and dying parent. And it's also on top of that, speaking very broadly, it's about the fact that in people's lives, even at the times of tragedy in our lives, you often just don't have enough time to spend with people and really say goodbye properly, which is that makes it sound a lot more depressing than the story actually is. But it's essentially it's about that kind of feeling that people really commonly have, which is you have something horrible going on in your life, but you also have your real life going on at the same time. You have to to drive someone to a doctor's appointment, you have to take time off from work. And in Joe's case, her job is Doctor Who companion. So it's sort of about playing with that new series vibe of meeting the parents in that kind of Brian Williams or Father's Day kind of way, and also introducing a sort of more of a backstory to Joe Grant's life, because it's a part of the Doctor Who era, or it's the Doctor Who era that's most, I think, able to be played around with in those new series tropes kind of way. You can give a much stronger backstory to someone like Joe Grant, because she, when she's done with an adventure, she goes home and has to cook dinner and whatnot. She's a very ordinary person. And so I wanted to get more of a sense of that. And it's also, as not to spoil it too much, but when you listen to it, you'll realize pretty quickly, I think, why it's a story that functionally just really couldn't take place in any other era, because it needed the Doctor to be sort of helpless and not to have the TARDIS, which, as you probably know, during the UNIT era, the Third Doctor doesn't have a working TARDIS.
Right.
So it's,
Nice.
So it's, in that way, it plays around with a lot of things. The last one I'll mention is probably what I found most fun was sort of giving Jo Grant a second dad, because there's a weird relationship with her and the Third Doctor that they're kind of, they're sort, you could read them as sort of like a couple, or you could read them as father-daughter, and there's a kind of paternalistic element there. And so giving Jo another sort of fatherly element that is just to try and complicate those sorts of relationships was something really fun to play with.
Yeah, because all we knew about Jo was her uncle in terms of family previously.
Which I should mention. Which I should mention. One of the other runners-up in my year, one of the other subscriber short trips called "Taken for Granted," out last year, actually shows that. So it shows how Jo got the job.
Oh.
And it's a really cute little story. It's you actually meet the uncle and everything. So
that's cool. And now that we've talked about a little about that, I did want to add something that I did not mention in the first half in terms of rules. I said you can't use companions or characters from the new series except for the Doctor. However, as you've just pointed out, you've used Jo Grant's. You can use companions and I think characters from the classic series, except for villains and monsters. So
so I think they're not encouraging you to use people like Sergeant Benton or the Master, but you're definitely allowed to use Dodo or Sarah Jane or whoever.
Villain, but could you use Marco Polo? Could we go back to Marco Polo? I mean, would that be something that you're allowed to do?
Marco Polo 2 Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah. I like that. That's why you're a professor. You're a professor.
Not quite, but but I should also say, if you have any questions about the short trips opportunity, they do encourage you to email them. They answer questions like that. So if you want to use Marco Polo, for instance, you have that perfect Marco Polo sequel idea, you can actually email them and ask if that's okay.
Oh, okay.
And when in doubt, ask. Perfect.
Yeah.
And that would, of course, be a big... Sorry, go ahead.
Can you use Big Finish companions?
Ooh.
Yeah, it says on the rules that you can actually use companions from Big Finish, like Evelyn Smythe with the Sixth Doctor.
You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't want to use David Tennant and Sarah. I want to use David Tennant and Evelyn Smythe.
That's perfect.
I have a story. I now have a story idea. I now have another story idea.
David Tennant, Marco Polo, and Evelyn Smythe.
Yeah, it'll work.
Damn.
Well, she is a historian, so the Marco Polo thing would work perfectly. And it's funny that we're this whole show's on Big Finish, because I do another show on Odyssey Radio called Doctor Who Audio Files, where we talk about audio Doctor Who stories. And this week, not this week, but it was a couple weeks ago, we did the Marion conspiracy with Colin Baker and Maggie Stables, Evelyn Smythe.
You had me at conspiracy.
Oh, it's a great story. Queen Elizabeth, or rather Queen Mary. I'm not going to give you too much about it.
Ooh.
Listen to this is her first story as a companion. It's a new companion for Colin Baker, and she is a 60-year-old history professor, and she's traveling with the Doctor, and it works. You don't think of a companion, as someone being older being a companion, but this just works, and she puts him in his place, doesn't she, Matt?
100%.
Oh my.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Evelyn's my favorite Big Finish additional character. I do love Charlotte Pollard.
Mark 342, where we spilled the juicy tea.
Yeah, we do. So Max,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any? Can you tell us about the process? Because you entered the 500-word synopsis and stuff. How did you go from there, taking your synopsis into the story? How did you expand on it? How did you work on that?
Yeah, so it was a really interesting process, not least because I was living back home in Florida for a couple of months. And it was around the time that we had a massive hurricane, actually, that everyone had to evacuate from. So I wrote part of the story.
I do remember that. I had to stay because I had to work at the library when it reopened. I couldn't leave.
So I wrote part of the story while running away from a hurricane. So, probably not the easiest. If there's anything bad about the story, you can blame it on that. But it was a lot of really just finding my feet, trying to, actually work as a writer, because it was something I'd always wanted to do, but I've always been a little too timid to actually put something to paper, because as soon as you do, then it's kind of out there, and you have to commit to it.
You're like, no, it exists.
Yeah, when it exists, that's the worst part, because then people can criticize it. So it's hopefully that won't happen here. But
no. I gotta tell you, I love the story. I can't say anything bad about it. There's nothing.
Thank you.
Still Life is one of my favorite short trips. I'm sorry, it just is.
Thank you. Well, I hope when people start to listen to it, love to hear what people think. So yeah, in terms of the actual writing process, I think the biggest thing was, if anyone gets the chance to do this, really realizing that you don't necessarily have to stick 100% to your outline or the thing that you submitted. So a couple of changes happened in my story that I can't go into. And then a couple other things, like for instance, I added a pre-title sequence pretty much at the last moment in this, which I think in the context of the story works pretty effectively. Partially because it's like an homage to the new series pre-titles, which I think are just a lovely part of single episode Doctor Who. And some of my favorite short trips include those. So yeah, I mean, it's really, the main thing I think is really quickly figuring out how to, for instance, take criticism from the producer who might have a couple of ideas on how to tweak the story, which bits work, which bits don't. But it really wasn't that hard for me. I only submitted 2 drafts, I think. And then it, pretty quickly got recorded about a year ago, which unfortunately I wasn't able to go to. But yeah, and it's, I should also say, while I have a chance, I would like to give a shout out to the people who actually, turned the words into a proper story, like including, it's read by Stephen Critchlow, who's not an actor from, he's not like a companion or anything from the original series, but he's a really excellent performer. The thing that I think I didn't expect from this was that the story wouldn't just be read out in a very, sort of dry way, like a lot of audiobook readings often are. It's a full performance. The story revolves around 3 characters, the Dr. Jo and her dad. And it's really, really well done. I mean, I can't believe how he put so much life into it. And he does an incredible Pertwee, I think. I don't know what you thought, Mark, but.
Yeah, he definitely did. What was his name again?
So it's Stephen Critchlow is the reader.
And what is he known for?
He's, I think, mostly a sort of audio and stage actor. He's been in a couple of Big Finish productions. He does almost all of the subscriber short trips. And he's also, he's been in like a recent Red Dwarf episode. He's been a sort of side character on Downton Abbey. So he's done like, small TV roles. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, he does do a pretty decent Pertwee. And that, not knowing who he was, and it was good. It was believable. You could feel Pertwee, and this is not taking anything away from Tim Treloar, who I love. But yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah, and there's also just the other person I think really, apart from Ian Atkins, the producer, but this when I got the sort of draft copy back, which I sent to you for this interview and you listened to, it also has music from Rob Harvey, who's done a lot of short trips, including Full Life and one of the other. There was the Adric one, The Ingenious Gentleman Adric.
Yeah,
and
Adric,
he does incredible
we have
music.
a little problem with Adric
Oh
on
yeah,
the show. You know
well,
my opinion on Adric. We've
I can
discussed
imagine.
Adric to many conversations on Adric
Yeah,
before Max.
but the short trips do a really good job with him.
Well, okay. You know what? He's
Yeah.
good on Big Finish. I like his character on Big Finish because you know what? The writers on Big Finish are so consistently writing great stories.
Yeah.
And back in the day in the classic, you know, you had writers and they didn't know how to write Adric. Adric was written like 4 or 5 different ways, and he was only in like 7 episodes, so 7 stories. So you know, writing, he was never a character that was the same, but he's the same in Big Finish. So I do like Matthew Waterhouse in Big Finish. So yeah, I can't say I hate Adric anymore, but
No, you cannot.
I can't. You heard it first here on Marco 42 on Odyssey Radio. Mark Baumgarten can't hate Adric anymore. It's sad. Don't tell Ed. Don't tell Ed. Don't tell Ed. Don't tell Ed. Don't tell Ed.
Tell Ed. Got it.
No, don't tell Ed. All right, Max, you were saying.
Yeah, that covers everything about Adric I think you can possibly say. Yeah, but in steering things back towards the short trips, on an Adric note, I would say if you're thinking of applying for the Paul Spragg competition and whatnot, the Adric stories are actually a really good place to start. So like A Full Life by Joseph Lidster, if you haven't listened to that, really brilliant. It, essentially, well, no, I shouldn't spoil things. It really does something really unique with Adric and makes him into a full character with a full life who is much more rounded than you'd expect.
Yeah.
Especially from the original series.
You need him rounder.
Yeah.
And actually, he was kind of round from eating all that food in Black Orchid, but that's another story. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, Matthew. I'm sorry.
He's a full circle.
He's a full circle.
That's a good one. That's a 10 out of 10.
And that's why Max writes for Big Finish now.
Oh, yeah.
Very clever, witty.
Yeah, well.
All righty then, on that note.
That's the good, anyway, on that note.
All right.
Silence. Oh.
Max, are you? Do you think you'll write for Big Finish again? Do you think they'll hire you? I mean, of course, I bet they'll hire you again after the reception to your story that comes out next month. But I mean,
yeah. I mean, I absolutely would love to. I have, lots of very strange ideas buzzing around. I think I have a whole list of potential story ideas, and I think the one you'd like most is I would really love to follow up on Space Florida from The Big Bang.
Oh, okay.
I think that's with the automatic sand. I don't know. That's just a random idea. But anyway, I think it would be really great to write for Big Finish again, especially for me, the short trips and the Companion Chronicles, which are still ongoing, are some of the
Chronicles. I love the Companion Chronicles. I think those work the best because, I mean, and I do like short trips. I do like audiobooks. I do listen to audiobooks. But when you have something added to it, and Companion Chronicles has the extra actor or 2 actors, because the Jiggle and Lightfoot story, the Mahogany Murders had, was kind of that was a special story. Poor guy.
But I think it's really interesting. There's there's that school of thought in the Doctor Who world that essentially it's best when it's limited in some way. It's at its best when the budgets are down, the actors are exhausted, the writers are overworked, and then strange ideas bubble up and everyone works overtime, and somehow, oftentimes you get not so great stuff. And then other times you get pure genius. And that's sort of, in some ways, what Doctor Who was born out of. And so the companion chronicles and the short trips in that way, by stripping things down a bit and limiting you to, just one narrator or two actors or something, I think it forces you to get really creative in the storytelling. So that's why they just sort of naturally bubble up with really interesting new ideas for these things. They're some of the more innovative areas in the spin-off world.
Would you ever write for the main range?
Yeah, I don't know if I would ever be allowed to get close to that, because you really have to be quite a solid writer at that point. But I would love to do absolutely anything. I would, hopefully they would contact me. If not, I'd love to badger them with some pitches. But if not, I'm still, if this is the only Doctor Who that I ever write, I think I'm really satisfied that it was this, because I think this particular story, Still Life, came out much better than I was expecting. And it's something I would be proud to say 50 years from now, oh, this one time I wrote an audio story and it was this,
Yeah.
And it's definitely something to be very proud of. It's a huge accomplishment for anybody's life, but for you, it's definitely something that's very impressive.
And I think it's also, on another note, it's really good for Big Finish too, because it's very hard to find new good writers in a lot of ways. And I think they're making a really good, genuine attempt to broaden the pool a little bit, to get writers who normally wouldn't be given a shot, maybe writers who'd never have written before, so they're not even writers yet. And, that's really great.
And
the
I
end
get
of opportunity.
I get to say that I broke matzah with somebody who wrote for Big Finish. So I'm that's great for me.
Was that Sylvester McCoy or Nick Briggs?
No, we never broke matzah, Nick Briggs and I.
Oh, no.
No. Sylvester, no. But we did listen to Enya. We loved. He got me into Enya back in the 80s. Yeah, Enya.
Yeah, I did actually
personal
meet
favorite
Briggs
of mine.
Last weekend. Yeah. Enya?
Enya's a personal favorite, especially Anywhere Is. That song still gets me to this day.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I did actually meet Nick Briggs last weekend, because he was in town for a sort of like a student competition, like a pub quiz. And I made an absolute fool of myself in some places by making some really terrible guesses.
Oh, were you on his team?
No, I was. So it was Cambridge versus Oxford, basically.
Oh, okay.
Sounds very pretentious, but it was essentially I was on the Cambridge team, and we were absolutely destroyed by the people on the Oxford team, who must have some sort of Douglas Adams-y psychic powers or something.
Wow! Oh, wow! So Cambridge lost to Oxford. Oh,
pretty badly.
Oh, yeah. Well, my niece
monumentously, if I might add.
My niece may be going to Oxford, so I'm
make her join that team.
Make her join that team. Yeah.
So if I never write for Big Finish again, it's probably because Nick Briggs saw my incredibly poor performance in this quiz. So.
Oh man, Max, I want you to do a shout out to your mom. Say hi to your mom. I'm serious.
I sure appreciate it.
I'm serious. Big shout out. Hopefully she's listening. I hope you told her to
listen. With a hand over her face, like, oh my glob.
See you next year at Passover.
We'll definitely pass over. That's for sure.
We're gonna pass over this part of the show. Max, do you have any final things you want to say about your story or about Paul Spragg and this
upcoming
contest?
Event, perhaps.
An event, something. What are you doing? Are you going to any conventions in England in the next? Wow.
I'm actually going to the next month. There's the Big Finish Day, which is essentially not only if you're enough of a nerd like me to go to a Doctor Who convention, but to go to a specifically Big Finish convention. That's the scene. So yeah.
And I was going to ask you, are you going to be on a panel? Or are you just
no.
Going?
I'm just going as me.
See, that would be perfect to be on a panel because it's that month. It would a perfect. Well, except it's a subscriber bonus, so you can't just buy it outright.
Yeah, although I should say it's the short trips subscriber bonuses are usually, the idea is that within about 2 or 3 years they get released as short trips rarities. So if you're not a subscriber and you don't get Still Life because you don't want to shell out for 6 main range audios, then you can also get it in about 2 years probably as a short trips rarity. And there are lots of ones already
We'll have to have you back on in 2 years when it comes on sale. So
yeah, happy to plug anything.
You can plug your book. I mean, your audio, your book, your audio book.
Yeah. Then the last thing I would like to say is if you're applying to the Paul Spragg opportunity, which you absolutely should because, it's a really great opportunity, you should also listen to some of the other short trips if you haven't before, especially the winners of these opportunities before. There's Forever Fallen, there's Landbound, there's Last Day at Work written by a friend of mine. And they're all really brilliant stories, some of which play with continuity in interesting ways, some of which have really incredible emotional stories. It's the kind of stuff that they're looking for. And, they're all free as well. So
yeah, you
should definitely take a look.
Yeah, I love the way the Big Finish, and I don't know how much longer it is for, that the American price is kind of lower than the British price. It's
the Americans are making out well.
Yeah, we're making out well. But they were supposed to change that, and they're still thinking about that. I just wanted to add. So,
So if you want to buy 6 main range stories, including the one that includes Still Life, buy
Do it now. Do it now. Go to bigfinish.com right now and subscribe and get Still Life by Max Curtis, because I've heard it. It's amazing. You will love it. I love the Pertwee Joe Grant combination, and like I said, this story almost brought me to tears. I mean, it was so powerful. So
almost,
amazing.
And I failed.
Well, no, I don't. I try not to cry. I'm not that sensitive. I'm not a sensitive guy. I'm a crass, evil person. And that's why people love Mark Who 42, because you can hear from a crass, evil person and still love Doctor Who and other science fiction. So on that note, I'd like to thank Iggy Matthews.
I'd like to thank the Academy. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to thank Zion Kiros.
You are always welcome.
And Max, thanks for coming on our show. We really appreciate it.
I'd like to thank everyone else.
All right.
Oh, we thank you. Woo.
So tune in next time to Mark Who 42 here on Odyssey Radio. Mark Who 42 has been written and presented by Mark Baumgarten, Trish Fryer, Eduardo M. Fryer, Iggy Matthews, and Zion Kiros. Mark Who 42 has been edited, directed, and produced by Mark Baumgarten. The theme music is by Sam Beckwith. Mark Who 42 is owned and copyrighted by Mark Baumgarten 2019. This is Odyssey Radio.
Mm-hmm.